to another Realm Kast Tarkatan Bite-Size episode. I'm your host, the Mortal Kombat Phantom, and with me as always is my co-host, our Lore Master Yanni. Welcome, Yanni.
Thank you, Phantom, and today we are finally diving into Mortal Kombat 1's Umgadi trailer, which released quite a while ago, if you might remember. We were both traveling during that time, and we figured it's about time we jump into it. We are going to be breaking down this character reveal trailer as we explore visual details, hidden references you might have missed, as well as use later reveal trailers for any potential newfound information which may apply.
But before we begin this bite-sized episode, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe bell to stay up to date with all the new Realmcast episodes. Subscribing to our channel ensures that you never miss out on any of our interviews and new Realmcast episodes and live Soul streams. It's also a great way to stay connected and be the first to know about our latest episodes and updates.
Now, this discussion will not include any details or information from the opening cinematic and the beginning of Chapter 1's playthrough, which were revealed quite recently and we did cover in our previous videos. But we don't want to use any information from those for those who are trying to, hide away from actually seeing too much information about the game before they get to play and would prefer to go through this information in one full sitting.
Umgadi are warrior priestesses.
At the very beginning of this trailer, we see this pier with like these Thai-style pagodas in the background. Do you know what that is or where that is?
I mean, I'm assuming that's in Outworld, and based on the information we have received, it should be Sundo, I'm assuming?
Yes, it is. That is actually recently been revealed as one of the stages you get to fight in, which is Sundo. Do you happen to have the description of Sundo available?
It is the capital city of Outworld and home to Empress Sindel's palace. Sundo is a grand melting pot of the realm's cultures and races.
That's right. So, Sundo seems to be where this is taking place, and it's kind of funny because we see a lot of scenes in Sundo in the various trailers, especially in this one. We're going to see a lot more coming up here. But on this pier...
Actually, before you even get into the pier, I just want to address Sundo itself. You do realize that we have heard of Sundo before.
Oh, tell me about that.
Sundo is actually a place in the previous timeline, which was located, once again, in Outworld. But it was actually Li Mei's hometown, or home village, I suppose.
Really? I didn't realize that's where her village was at.
So Sundo was actually first mentioned in MK Deadly Alliance in Li Mei's BIOS, but then we actually get to see it, if I remember correctly, in Conquest modes, Deception's Conquest mode, where obviously, you're traversing around a Shujinko. Now, it's very interesting that they've brought it back, but in a very different capacity, because in the previous timeline, in the 3D era, it was actually just a small village, but now it seems to be the capital of Outworld, if I remember the bio correctly.
Yeah, I believe you're right. And I mean, it's Empress Sindel's palace is here. So, I mean, that even if you're not sure about that, it seems like a good presumption that this is the capital of Outworld now in this new timeline.
A bit further information on it, because the fact that they're using Sundo is actually very interesting. Sundo, we did actually cover this, I think, in our Soul stream with Under the Mayo, if I remember correctly. But in I think it was Deadly Alliance, yeah, I mean, where Li Mei really was brought into the fold. Shang Tsung and Quan Chi, the Deadly Alliance, basically had Kano's troops take over the village, and they were constructing a fortress. And one of the villagers, obviously, was Li Mei. She was not so happy to just be, enslaved, and fought back. Quan Chi and I think Shang Tsung basically said, hey, if you want to win your freedom, then you have to win our version of a Mortal Kombat tournament, pretty much held by, Shang Tsung and Quan Chi. So that's where Shujinko actually met Li Mei, because Li Mei had a bit of training, again, if I remember correctly, with Shujinko. So that was pretty cool just for the 3D era. But then Sundo does not just disappear and then turn up again in Mortal Kombat 1. We actually did sort of hear about it in the reboot timeline too, in the NRS era, and that was actually in the comics. Actually, was it? Actually, no, hold on. It could have been MKX or the comics, one of the two. I always kind of put their stories together in my mind. But there was a battle between Kotal Khan and Melina, and it actually took place in Sundo.
Well, that's cool. I didn't realize that much history around Sundo. Well, as you can see here on the pier, there are those little tiny cart things that basically royalty are carried around in. I think the official...
Palanquins?
Yes, exactly. That's what they're called, and I didn't want to attempt pronouncing it because I'm sure I would mess that up. But, judging from Mortal Kombat 1's reveal trailer, it's easy to think that this could be the Palanquin for Katana and Melina, because we saw that in that first reveal of them being carried through a city and then seeing the eclipse and that sort of thing. But I think there's something else going on, because the scene immediately afterwards, there's actually several of these being towed by some kind of livestock, and it to me, I think that this is a gathering of a lot of different people that are showing up into Sundo for probably the Dragon Festival, which has kind of been hinted at through some of the other trailers.
Interesting that you call it a Dragon Festival. Is it?
Yes.
Has it been officially mentioned as a Dragon Festival or a Lantern Festival? What is it? Like, where did you hear that, or did you just?
Yeah, I'm actually not sure. You could be right. It could be the Fireworks Festival. I do know that
Fireworks,
there's a stage.
Lantern, Dragon. Who knows? I'm just thinking if it was actually the Dragon Festival. I'm wondering if that's yet another reference to Onaga, which is why I asked.
Or I was thinking, yeah, that could be right. I kind of initially thought it could be related to Liu Kang with his, dragon form and powers like that. But maybe it is an Onaga reference if it is a dragon festival.
So you're talking about the multiple palanquins and how there are multiple people within them. Now, it could be the palanquin possibly containing Li Mei and Liu Kang, as we have seen in a different trailer, or even this one. Did she just jump out the trailer? Out the palanquin? Like, you could call it a trailer, but was it this one?
Yeah, that's coming up. So we're not quite there yet. But
okay.
Before we
get there... there's a reason I say this before you get that far, because we do have other trailers where we've seen them going by, and it's not just Li Mei and Liu Kang. We see Raiden in one of them, and we do know from the Rulers of Outworld trailer that Raiden is the chosen champion. So I'm wondering if they're on their way to the tournament.
Yeah, this could be the beginning of Mortal Kombat also, which, who knows, maybe there is a Lantern Festival or Fireworks or Dragon or whatever kind of festival it is to commemorate the beginning of Mortal Kombat. But before we jump too far ahead here in the trailer that we have, look there right at the beginning of the little convoy, and who do you notice, Yanni? At
the beginning of the convoy?
Yep, right in front. Do you see that little person?
Well, I see a Shokin, and everybody's calling him the Happy Shokin.
That's him. That's our little drummer Shokin from the Rulers of Outworld trailer. So he seems to be leading this group of Palanquins as they go through the city.
Obviously, when you have 4 arms, you got to just play the drums. That was a very logical decision by whoever chose to do it at NRS.
Probably the most peaceful Shokin I've ever heard of.
The happiest looking too.
Selected from the firstborn daughters of Outworld. From infancy, they are trained to defend the royal family.
Li Mei is jumping out the palanquin like we were just discussing, and that actually is sort of, I guess we're skipping ahead, is related to a trailer that was, I say a trailer, actually just a scene that was shown at San Diego Comic-Con, containing a couple of characters which until recently, neither of which were mentioned again.
And so this scene, we also see Liu Kang jumping out of the palanquin here too. So it's as we discussed, it's Liu Kang and Li Mei being carried through the city to whatever event they're showing, and there's a cameo appearance of a character here who, we're not going to really mention because we don't want to give too much away on the spoilers, but it's good to reference where this kind of exists in the timeline for those who are paying attention to every kind of footage that goes out there.
What's interesting actually as well are the outfits on the enemies that Li Mei is currently kicking on the screen. They seem to be wearing, I don't know, very Shao Kahn. So I keep saying Shao Kahn. I'm so used to it. General Shao-esque designs.
Yeah,
if you know what I mean, like with the red, the trim, and everything. General Shao is a general of Empress Sindel, and based on what we're seeing, even within their own reveal trailer, it looks like he's going to try and usurp the throne. But I just find it quite interesting that we are seeing immediately in this that there is already an ongoing battle, and it looks like, judging by the outfits, General Shao is already trying to take over.
Besides that, we already have confirmation that Liu Kang and Li Mei open up the doors and attack the general's armies. So that is quite interesting, and who knows, there could be more than one general too. We're not quite sure on where the story is heading, but we do know that there is a confrontation right here, right now.
Yes. Now, what's interesting as well is if you go back a scene just before Liu Kang and Li Mei jump out, we see Melina and Kitana standing up atop the stairs with the Umgadi.
That's right. And do you recognize any of these Umgadi as being Tanya, who gets revealed here in the trailer, or?
I do not. No.
Okay, I didn't either. I wasn't sure because there's a couple models that kind of look similar.
Well, the reason I brought this up is because obviously the Umgadi have a very specific color code, which is yellow-ish, right? Yellow and black. And we then see Li Mei fighting against enemies wearing that red and gold trim instead, which is why I'm immediately jumping to General Shao trying to revolt.
Also, at the beginning of the scene, we get to see Li Mei kind of walking through a crowd, and she's actually being applauded by those who see her entrance, which, that's kind of interesting. It seems to be like some kind of royal court even, and she's being applauded for entering.
I don't know if she's being applauded or not as she walks in. It just looks like they have their hands together, but they could have been clapping prior.
You're right. They seem to be putting their hands together and things like that. So maybe it's not applause. Maybe she's just entering a room. But the setting is still interesting.
I will prevail, Earthrealmer. This fight is more important to me than you can ever know.
So on this scene, it is a gameplay footage scene, but there's a lot of dialogue happening, kind of explaining the backstory of Li Mei in this new era. It starts off with her saying, "This fight is more important to me than you can ever know." And then Liu Kang explains what happened, that Li Mei actually used to be Umgadi herself. Yanni, what are your thoughts on that? That's quite a change in Li Mei's lore already, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Li Mei's backstory is, I want to say entirely different now, apart from the fact that she is based in Sun Do. That's seemingly the only thing they've actually really continued with, unless they somehow bring back, Boraicho and have him train her. And same thing with Shujinko. But Li Mei is, in my opinion, clearly older looking compared to some of the rest of the characters, and that's another thing that seems to have changed. So she is more of a veteran now, based on just that design of hers. And her saying, "This fight is more important to me than you can ever know," with it then going to, she used to lead the Umgadi, and on her watch Jared was murdered, is very, very interesting to me here, because firstly, it could be a bit more misdirection. We have spoken about this in our other videos where, it looks like she's saying that to Raiden. I personally do believe she is saying that to Raiden. That part looked like a cinematic until obviously it gets into the fight.
Yeah, I always thought that was a fight intro.
I don't see that being a normal fight intro. I see that being a story-based fight intro.
That makes sense.
I don't see why she would randomly say to somebody, this fight is more important to me than you will ever know. Like, why would that come up? All the dialogues that we've had from pre-fight interactions have some form of, connection to another line,
Yeah.
But I don't see who she would be saying that to. This, to me, seems as if, running back with the train of thought that we had earlier on the tournament about to begin, it looks like Li Mei is about to fight against Raiden.
Yeah, and you know, the way that the scene is set up too, it's kind of how NetherRealm does their story mode fight intros, where they will have a little scene and then the interaction kind of continues into a quick little dialogue snippet before the fight starts. So yeah,
exactly.
I see what you're saying. I can see that being the case.
There's no fade to black like in other trailers where it makes you think, oh, this character's saying this to this person, and then it cuts off, goes black, and then goes into another fight. No, in this one, it actually is a seamless transition. So unless they've taken the dialogue and put it onto here, which they very well could have done, they have been misdirecting us quite a lot, deceiving us quite a lot. I think that she is saying that to either Raiden or whoever she's fighting at the tournament in question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you could be right. And then this dialogue here too also confirms Jared is dead in this new era, this new timeline.
Again.
Now,
and the best part is we don't know who you were about to say
that. Yeah. we never know who killed Jared because it changes so often. Everybody wants credit for that one. But Jared is gone. And just, Yanni, do you want to remind our viewers who aren't familiar with who King Jared is, a quick rundown, a brief rundown on who he was in the story of Mortal Kombat?
King Jared was the ruler of Edenia alongside Queen Sindel, and he was killed. I say killed because there are so many different ways it's apparently happened. When Shao Kahn in the previous eras took over Edenia and obviously annexed it into Outworld, he took Kitana in as his own in some form, whether it be as a daughter, depending on which lore we're following, or as an assassin, or just lying to her. And whereas Sindel took her own life into her own hands, apparently quite literally in some retellings, and was brought back to be under Shao Kahn's spell so that he could invade Earthrealm. Now, Jared, we were in a way sort of hoping that we would actually get to see him alive for the very first time in a long time. I think the only time we've actually ever seen him properly alive, aside from potentially the comics, and even then I don't know if we have seen, is Mortal Kombat Legacy. Only then. But aside from that, really the only time we've actually had proper mention of Jared in him being, I say this as his own character, it's going to be kind of ironic, is where he's apparently one of the souls within Ermac. So it's quite interesting that they've immediately gone with killing off Jared once again. And that is a huge part of Queen Sindel's bio, which if I bring that up right now, when she ascended to Outworld's throne, she was worried that she was ill prepared. Her impending arranged marriage to Jared, an Outworld noble, forced into it to placate a rebellious region. She could only pray that he was worthy. To Sindel's delight, he proved an ideal partner. Her early reign, I find this interesting. She has been empress. He was a noble. She was always the queen, it seems like, from the beginning. In this, unless they were equals in that title, I don't see that within her bio. So Sindel had twin daughters. That is another, I say retcon, but it's Liu Kang's new era. Thanked the gods for her charmed life, and did not thank them for what happened next. Jared was murdered. Her heart was broken, and smelling weakness, factions formed to challenge her rule, which is potentially what we are seeing within this trailer. Perhaps General Shao. As her enemies conspire, she fights to protect her family and empire, and will do whatever it takes to defend her daughter's right. So, Jared, dead once again, and that is actually going to play quite heavily into the plotline here, it seems.
Warrior priestesses, selected from the firstborn daughters of Outworld.
So Liu Kang says the Umgadi are warrior priestesses selected from the firstborn daughters of Outworld. From infancy, they are trained to defend the royal family. Were there Umgadi in previous timelines at all, or is this a complete? Yeah, I didn't think so.
This is completely new. Yeah. It's it's interesting that they've decided to go with the Umgadi. Personally, I'm not happy with how it's been used to change one of the characters who will be coming up at some point in this trailer. But firstly, let's talk about the word Umgadi, because when I first heard that, that's never been in Mortal Kombat before. That is something new, as we said.
Mm-hmm.
And having searched it up, it looks like Umgadi is a Zulu word, which
interesting.
Which linguistically means something along the lines of invigilator or guard or sentry. And that seems to be very fitting based on what we've just heard. They are there to defend the royal family. They are trained from infancy.
Well, a lot of people have been comparing the Umgadi to the women from Black Panther. I can't remember the name of their role. I probably couldn't pronounce it either. The Darjeeling or something like that.
That's a T. You weren't going to try saying the name, were you?
No,
well, I mean, it's. I've seen some people saying, no, you can't just say that. But in reality, I'm sorry, but there is most certainly an influence there. I really do think so.
Oh yeah, I mean, you said yourself, it's a Zulu word that this is originating from. So there's definitely references or inspiration from Black Panther, in my opinion. What they've done with the Umgadi.
Just about the Zulu, it's the largest ethnic group and actually nation in South Africa. So it's got a lot of influence here compared to what I guess people would say, like, oh no, there's no similarities. No, I guarantee that there's similarity. Now, I'm not saying it could be that I'm going to try this. The Dora Milaje, if I remember correctly, in terms of pronunciation, might be influenced by a completely different group potentially. But I still do see the similarities there, especially with them protecting the royalty of their respective nations. So it's a bit weird for me to see. I feel like I'm being a bit unfair here, and I will call myself out for that. But it's a bit weird for me to see Earthrealm words being used to name Edenian or Outworld groups. You know, like I understand that it's inspiration for the name potentially, but in my opinion, it could be changed up a bit. You know, well, certain things could change.
We've talked about this too in some of our other breakdown analysis, that there has been Outworld influences in Earthrealm before, like specifically with Kotal Khan. The fact that, you know, some of his backstory is that he had influenced South America in the way that he had. You know, it's not out of the realm of possibilities that the Umgadi could have, like, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Do you know what I mean?
The Umgadi or the
or the Zulu people.
No, that is a very fair point. It is because we have also seen that Earthrealm and Outworld have much closer ties than they did in the previous timelines.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
So that is a very good point.
Right.
I mean, I'm not saying it in a sense of the actual story itself. I'm thinking more along the lines of, you know, how we have Edenia being called Edenia. Like, what is the... Actually, now I'm curious. What is the meaning behind the word Edenia? And just having searched that, found out that it comes from the Hebrew word, place of pleasure, delight.
Well, it seems that... Yeah, I mean, I guess we can't really...
No, that's why I was saying I'm calling myself out here. I just feel like they could have... No, you know what? I completely shut myself down there. Fair enough.
All right. Way to go, Umgadi. So, you know, they say too that the Umgadi are warrior princesses selected from the firstborn daughters of Outworld. So is this... Do they just take all the firstborn daughters and turn them into these warriors? Like, is it every single one, or are they kind of selected?
I'm just imagining a family giving birth. Oh no, it's a daughter. Like, we have to give her away, you know?
Oh, I know.
Or if it's different.
It could be too that, you know, maybe like there's some countries have proprietary periods where you have to go and dedicate yourself to particular services. So maybe if you're the firstborn daughter, you are expected to train with the Umgadi, but you are still living at home and eating.
Essentially, it's conscription.
Right, exactly. Like that could be the case. Or it could be like Lin Kuei style, where they just take the children and make them
catch.
Right.
No, but what's more interesting to me here is whether or not this applies to the royal family.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. And if that were the case, then would Melina have had Umgadi training herself? Because she was the firstborn in this timeline.
Was she?
In this timeline.
She was the firstborn between her and Kitana as twins.
Right.
Has Sindel potentially had another child?
Oh, I don't know. If she... Well, that opens up a lot of fan theories and possibilities. I see where you're going with this all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've seen a lot of people on social media saying Li Mei and Sindel look very alike. Now, whether or not that's down to just people mixing up faces of certain ethnicities, or if that is, if there's some element of truth to it. Now, personally, when I saw the faces, I didn't think that. I did not think that. But then I saw a character dialogue between Liu Kang and Li Mei in the beta. And that was something along the lines of, I regret having never known my parents. And Liu Kang says, who's to say you never will?
Interesting. Very interesting. That could add a whole new dynamic to these people. I did not expect the story to go in this direction at all. That's interesting.
Right? So, I mean, we have confirmation that Li Mei was an Umgadi.
Mm-hmm.
She was potentially, she was most likely the daughter of a firstborn noble. And where do we see the word noble come up?
With Vincent's bio. Yeah.
Yes. So what if Li Mei was the firstborn? I could be wrong. I could be completely wrong. Like, if anything, when I saw this theory, I was like, until I saw the intro dialogue,
It's a good theory. And then especially with the fact that it's possible that the Umgadi never know their parents, because they're not just conscripted, but they are taken by the Umgadi for training, and maybe none of them know their parents. I like this theory. That's something.
Surrender if you wish to remain unharmed.
Let us pass, Tanya. The Empress and her family are in danger.
Are you so easily taken in by lies?
All right, so we get our first reveal at Tanya. And this is, I don't know, there's a lot of people who are upset with Tanya's characterization in this version of Mortal Kombat. So I'm expecting the comments to let us know what you think about Tanya, because there's been a lot of discussions on if this is good changes or bad changes. Yanni, what do you think of Tanya?
Okay, I'm going to speak as somebody who loves Tanya as a character and who mained her in MKX.
Mm-hmm.
And has really enjoyed her character since her introduction to MK4. I played the hell out of her in MK4. I played her in Deception, and I played her in X. And in X, not to toot my own horn, because I'm not an amazing player, but Tanya was hard, okay? So you did not get many Tanya players, at least in her Naginata form. I really liked Tanya, and I really liked her older characterization, as you called it, where, in my opinion, she actually came across as very Egyptian looking.
Yeah,
and
that's what a lot of people say.
Yeah, like ancient Egyptian theme to her, That was a very, very cool thing for me. I'm a big fan of Greek mythology and Egyptian mythology. In fact, I'm doing this to show you just how into Egyptian mythology and such that I am. My entire keyboard here is literally hieroglyphic themed. Okay, like I'm very into it. So it was really cool for me having a character like that, I've always really liked Tanya, and I liked how she would. Yes, okay, she came across sometimes as one-dimensional in the sense that she was a traitor, but there was always so much to her character that was very important. She's the one who allowed Shinnok and his forces into Edenia, which then allowed them to take on, firstly, not just Edenia, but the heavens as well as Earthrealm, which led to the events of Mortal Kombat 4, you know? And she's had this rivalry going with Jade and everything, and then in MKX, her character really becomes more closer to not just Melina, who they have a romantic relationship, which is not just implied, but straight up confirmed, and then also to one of my favorite characters, Rain. So I've always liked Tanya, and then I've liked how her character has progressed.
So that kind of leads me into a question for you. What was Jade's role originally with Mortal Kombat?
Jade was really the protector of Kitana.
So, that being said, I'm going to have a lot of people who are mad at me for this, but Tanya in this timeline is basically Jade.
Yes.
And, you know, we have a lot of people asking for Jade. Jade's been confirmed to be a countess through, like, intro dialogues and stuff like that. But I don't think we're going to see Jade because we have Tanya. And Tanya fulfills the role of Jade in so many different ways. Even her weapon is, you know...
Staff.
Yeah, it's basically a three-part staff in the ways that it works. So, sorry guys, I think this is your Jade now.
Well, I actually think there's more to it. And I say this as somebody who... I like Jade.
Mm-hmm.
I did not like her take in MK11 at all. But I like Jade.
Uh-huh.
I don't care if she makes it in as playable or not this time. I'm very happy to see her sit this one out. If that means that we see other characters get to be playable instead. Serena, for example, for me. I'm very happy with, for example, Sonya and Jade not making it in.
Are you seeing Jade? Are you seeing her not being able to make it in? Because, you know, from the looks of it, you have a royal protector who uses a staff. I mean, it's Jade. You know, they named her Tanya, and they probably incorporated some Tanya stuff to her character in some ways, but it's Jade. I mean, you're not. I don't think you're seeing Jade sit it out. I just think you're seeing her in a different way.
I completely disagree with you.
What do you
and again, I say this as somebody who does not care if Jade makes it or not.
Uh-huh.
Now, you said that she has taken on the role of Jade, and you are completely correct in a way, because she has become defender of the royal family, right?
Yeah.
What is the one thing we know Tanya for?
Betrayal.
Yes, she is a traitor.
Yeah.
What is the first thing that we hear, really, in this trailer that stands out the most to us? Jared is dead.
Yeah, let us pass, Tanya. The Emperor and her family are in danger.
Yes. Jared is dead. Li Mei has stepped down because of her failure.
Uh-huh.
Who stood to gain from that? Who is the new leader of the Umgadi?
Oh, so interesting. So it could have been like a plot to increase her rank. That's what she could have gotten from this, which could have made the whole Jared death thing a lot more, intricate than like the past ideas of how Jared had died.
Exactly. I think that I've said it before. I think that now that it's a blank slate, everybody at NRS, specifically, let's go with Dominic and Ed, now have a blank canvas for them to just go with the lore in their own direction and be able to maybe fix certain things that we did not get to see done properly, or at least allude to them in some manner, and then possibly tie up things which could have been done, let's just say, better. And in this case, if Jared's death was used in such a way to actually fulfill some form of plot progression, then it's already being done better than in the previous timeline. And I love the previous timeline, the OG era's, lore as a whole, obviously. But if Tanya stood to gain from Li Mei failing to do her duty, then Tanya becomes leader. Now, Tanya might not be a traitor. She might not be. In fact, if we go through her biography, it says, chosen as an infant from Outworld's firstborn daughters, Tanya was raised by the Umgadi priestesses. So there, we have our answer as to who she is raised by. the Umgadi priestesses. She has never known her birth family. As she grew older and saw other initiates wash out, Tanya feared that she would share their fate. But that fear spurred success. After many attempts, Tanya passed her trials and became a full Umgadi. Over time, she became one of the Order's most trusted members, and she was the obvious choice, important, when it needed to choose a new leader for the royal family's personal guard. As an Umgadi, Tanya is sworn to piety and chastity. That is why her bond with Princess Melina, were it known, would cause a scandal. By following her heart, Tanya risks not only her position, but also her life. Now, there's a lot there. What stood out to you?
Well, the biggest thing is when they talk about Tanya's piety and chastity. You know, the people who love the fact that Tanya and Melina are shipped, you know, might have a little bit more to get through in this timeline in order to see that relationship succeed, because she's sworn to chastity, which how's that play out with Melina, I guess?
Well, it's very interesting, because I think that this actually, remember what we said, Tanya is known for betrayal, and I specifically said, even though I really like the character, she could at times be quite one-dimensional. Always betrayal. Like, at some point, you got to stop hearing, this is a trap, you know? MK4, Tanya to Liu Kang. I think that they've potentially given her more facets to her character. I think, this is my theory, that she was part of Jared's death, so that she would become the new leader of the Umgadi. As it says, she was the obvious choice from when they needed to choose a new leader. But then she falls in love with Melina. Now, whether or not she's also going to betray Melina and this is not actual love, that could be it. Maybe she's just still a traitor. But I think that she's a traitor who then falls in love with the daughter of the man she's killed or helped kill. And so now we go back to Jade. Jade. Okay, tell me what you know about Jade so far in MK1, as you mentioned already.
Oh, all I know is that she is a countess. Countess Jade.
She is a countess. What was Tanya in the OG timeline?
I don't know. Was she a countess?
She was the daughter of Edenia's ambassador to the New Realms.
Huh.
She was the daughter of a noble.
Uh-huh.
That, in my opinion, is quite similar to her position now as countess. It's not the same, but it's still a high position. So, Jade has potentially taken on Tanya's role, but perhaps this time without the deception. Or with it.
Yeah. I mean, who knows? Maybe they just switched the names around last minute and said, let's make this...
names and color palette.
Yeah.
You know what? You could actually be on the money with that guess, actually. You're making a joke. But what if, because they never knew their birth parents, etc., etc., what if Jade's character is Tanya's character and Tanya's character is Jade's character? As we've seen with Kuai Liang being Scorpion now, for example. What if this character has changed in a similar way as well?
Once again, you prove incapable of protecting the royal house.
So Tanya says to Li Mei, once again, you prove incapable of protecting the royal house. And I'm curious, is this the same scene that we kind of saw earlier? Or is this something brand new? Because we're automatically, like, right away seeing beef between Tanya and Li Mei, which makes for some good character dynamic between these two. The fact, I mean, even if your theories are way off, the fact that Li Mei stepped down from a role and Tanya took it over, I mean, Tanya, I'm sure, feels a bit superior to Li Mei and doesn't really consider Li Mei as good of a protector as she is, because she couldn't do her job. You know what I mean? Potentially,
yeah. It could be that, or it could just be that she's trying to maintain some distance between the two so that she doesn't, you know, give her any idea, like give anybody any idea to bring Li Mei back or something. She probably stands to gain more, if my theory is correct, with keeping Li Mei away. Now, I think this is a good point to bring up Li Mei's bio. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. What is her bio saying?
So her title is First Constable of the Sun Do. As her parents' firstborn daughter, Li Mei was claimed by the Umgadi, the warrior priestesses who guard Outworld's royal family. Her service began with high expectations. Her early success caught the eye of the royal family, but it all fell apart when a terrible tragedy unfolded. Li Mei was blamed for this, and in the aftermath, she did the unthinkable. She quit the Umgadi. Friendless and alone, Li Mei needed a new purpose. She joined the Sun Do's constables, the Outworld capital's rough and tumble police force. Over time, she became their first constable. Li Mei is glad to be the capital guardian, still she hopes one day to redeem herself.
That's cool. So she's basically the town police chief of
Pretty much.
Sundo. Nice.
Yeah. What's an interesting part of this bio for me is that it says she did the unthinkable. She quit the Umgadi. And maybe this is a reason for Tanya's sort of venom towards her when she sees her.
Nobody quits the Umgadi.
You know, even if you make a mistake, you don't quit. Something along those lines.
You know, I was thinking earlier when I see this trailer, Tanya's colors and Li Mei's colors really contradict each other. They're basically exact opposites on the color wheel almost. And I was wondering if that was a choice by Li Mei to do that, or now I'm kind of curious too if that's the constable uniform that she has to wear.
It's the constable uniform. I'm pretty sure we've seen other constables.
Okay.
In the trailers, but it's such an interesting thing. Like, yes, you know, we've seen so many bio changes and everything, and you asked me earlier about, you know, Sun Do itself and how much Sun Do has changed. And now we've talked about how Tanya has changed and how that change potentially affects Jade. But one character that we have been discussing, but we haven't actually addressed her past lore, is Li Mei herself. And her past lore, aside from, you know, being trained by Boracho and Shujinko, as we said, is quite, integral to the rise of a character that we have mentioned many times. Onaga.
Onaga, yeah.
So, Li Mei enters that tournament that I mentioned of the Deadly Alliance, right? And she wins. But she was not actually rewarded. Instead, what they did was they put her soul into one of the Dragon King's ancient army. And just before it could be completed, she is saved by Boracho, who then takes on her as a student and trains her. So her bio then sort of implies that she has a strange draw towards a new power taking hold in this realm. And that is sort of... well, I mean, it's obviously related to Onaga, right? The rise of the Dragon King. But that is sort of addressed in a very interesting way in her non-canon Deception ending, which is where she betrays the alliance of, let's just say, the good guys, the forces of light. And she not just turns on them, she actually helps Onaga to merge the Kamidogu. And once he has this in his control, he transforms Li Mei into his queen. And so they rule the one realm and slay the Elder Gods together. So the reason I'm bringing this up here is because, firstly, Li Mei is very different from her 3D era counterpart. On top of that, she is the exact opposite, technically, of Tanya, in the sense that she actually fights against Onaga, and Tanya is fighting for Onaga because Tanya is a traitor who will do whatever is best to survive. And then we see some form of extra reference to Onaga. Here, just the fact that Li Mei is in here, just the fact that Tanya is in here, there is no way, in my opinion, just based on these characters being present and related in some fashion, that Onaga is not going to be into the story.
It's possible. We don't know yet, but yeah, that's a good point. Two of these characters do have a lot of Onaga references in their original stories, but That still could be something for a later game, Mortal Kombat 2 perhaps. Who knows where we're going with Mortal Kombat 1 still. But I
thought it would be good to mention, you know.
Yeah, I think you're pretty much on the kick that we are going to see a Dragon King in the storyline, aren't you?
And it's not going to be a Liu Kang animality.
I don't know. I'm still skeptical if we'll see such a thing. I would love it if he does appear, but yeah, I'll be kind of shocked if they bring him back so early on in the game.
I think it'll be a big sort of like progression to that stage, and it'll be possibly the climax of the story.
Yeah, maybe.
But I would like to, I mean, obviously the more Onaga the better. If he's returning, which I really do think he is, then I'd like to see him in his full glory.
Are you unwell, princess?
I am fine, Tanya.
Okay, so here we see Tanya and Melina's relationship, their interactions a little bit better. Tanya seems concerned for Melina, but not in just the I'm the royal guard kind of way, which is something that, you know, a lot of Melina Tanya fans jumped on right away when they saw this scene.
We see Tanya, who is very concerned, seemingly, for Melina's health, and then Rain is just a complete opposite. He's just like... does not care, looks over, is like, nah, I'm gonna continue my drink. Just looks away. And considering he's supposed to be, according to his bio, high mage, I don't know, I feel like he would try to be a bit more interested in this sort of thing, but then I wonder if he's potentially a part of whatever faction it is that is trying to break away from Sindel.
Yeah. Well, and you know something else too is that this scene shows them all sitting around at the dinner table, which kind of contradicts what we were led to believe with the Lin Kuei trailer. I'm not going to go back into everything we talked about then, but as we kind of mentioned, the way that it was cut, it appeared as if the Lin Kuei were going up against Rain, but here we see Rain is just hanging out with everybody else at the dinner table. So it kind of reinforces that idea that these trailers are cut up in a way to misdirect you and leave you really with no idea what's going to happen in this story.
Well, I mean, we do have to remember Rain's dialogue in that, and he says, Liu Kang sent you to learn our secrets. So I do think he is talking to potentially somebody at this table, but it's going to be much later. I say much later. It's going to be at a later point in the story, and that's actually one reason why I think that Rain is not going to be on the good guy's side, as he never really is, you know. But I'm still wondering about Tanya and Melina's relationship, whether or not it is genuine, whether or not Tanya is ready to betray her as well. You know, it's going to be an interesting thing to follow this time. There's definitely more focus on it this time, and I'm just curious to see how that pans out.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, in one of Melina's endings, they end up having a baby together, so who knows where this story is going to lead, if we're getting the betrayer Tanya or the loving mother Tanya.
For you to hold the throne, we must keep your secret.
With Liu Kang's help, maybe they'll find a cure.
So here we see Melina, of course, transforming, it seems for the first time, into the infected Tarkat version of Melina, which has a big role in this storyline, the Tarkat virus. And if you haven't seen our previous episode, we did a whole breakdown on what Tarkat could mean for the entire Mortal Kombat 1 universe. So I encourage you to go check that video out. We're not going to go too much into that.
Tarkat 23.
What was that?
It's all about Tarkat 23.
Oh my god, is that what is that what we're calling it? But you know, there have been a lot of people who have noticed Kenshi's concern for Melina too in the scene. It's kind of funny that we went straight from Tanya being concerned to Kenshi, you know, stroking her hair and making sure.
Oh, don't do that! No, not you too. The amount of comments I've seen about that, and it's just like he's literally looking into her eyes. He's watching her pupils change. But one thing that's very interesting about what I just said is he's looking into her eyes.
Like romantically, is that what you're implying?
No. What is Kenshi?
Oh yeah, he's blind. I forget about that sometimes. Well, especially in the storyline, because his first interaction with Johnny Cage that we've seen in another trailer, he's not blind. So where in the story does Kenshi lose his eyesight? Does it have anything to do with Shang Tsung like it did in the original timeline, or is this due to Melina transforming and he just can't handle the sheer awesomeness of Melina turning into this mutation?
I mean, it's if you look back at how social media was discussing this, a lot of people seem to think that Melina potentially claws his eyes as she transforms or something. I personally think it's going to be Sento or Shang Tsung or both.
Yeah.
In terms of relation to how he loses his eyesight.
Yeah, same. I can't see them giving... I don't know. That seems so far off from Kenshi's origin that I don't see Melina being the cause of it. Especially because we just had a movie, Snowblind, come out where it really dove into Kenshi's backstory and, reinstated where he got his powers for those who hadn't grown up with Kenshi. I mean, of course, it's not a one-for-one of the original Mortal Kombat timeline, but it had a lot of the same plot points that we know of how Kenshi lost his eyesight. Anything's possible in Mortal Kombat, but my point is that it still hits the same plot points. It still hits the same main ideas of Kenshi. And so in Liu Kang's new era, if they're changing his origin that drastically, I don't know, that just doesn't sit right as somebody who enjoys Kenshi's backstory.
Sure, but you could say that for many characters. Just the fact that Scorpion is now Kuai Liang, I see them being I see them being very bold with their lore changes. I mean, look at Rain. My favorite character is now the High Mage instead of the Water Ninja.
Yeah, you went from the Water Ninja to Harry Potter.
Aguamenti. No, but I mean, my biggest, just since you mentioned that, my biggest concern with that is whether or not he's still going to have some form of prince origin. You know what I mean? He's supposed to be royal in some manner. That is a huge part of his character, and I really hope that they manage to get that back in. But back to the characters at hand. We are seeing Melina transforming, while I think that voice is Kitana's saying, "For you to hold the throne, we must keep your secret."
Oh, originally when I heard it, and up until just now, I thought it was always Tanya, just because it went from that scene into this scene. But I think you're right. Now that I think about it, that probably sounds more like Kitana than Tanya.
Yeah, and that's what I think about these trailers. They are done in such a way to make you think it's one character talking, or one character saying this or doing this, etc., etc. It's just they're doing it on purpose, and it's actually very well done, very well crafted trailers.
Yeah.
So because Melina is the older sister now, she is the rightful heir to the throne. She was born seconds ahead of Kitana, so for the first time ever, Princess Kitana is not heir to the throne, right?
Yeah.
But we're seeing signs of insurrection not only against Queen Sindel, but also against Melina. As even Melina's biography says, there are those who distrust Melina's impulsiveness, and they whisper that Kitana, with her steadier hand, should replace Melina as Sindel's heir. Now, firstly, I'm a bit confused, because if Sindel's alive, we know that Edenians last an eternity in terms of age. So are they really looking that far ahead? So that's a very weird sort of plot point for me.
They're like, fact that Melina... Sindel's great now, but just imagine when she's 3,000 years old.
No, but they're already like past that age.
Oh,
you know?
That's right.
Kitana is thousands of years old, at least according to the old lore, right? So it's just weird that they're going for this. But her bio says, were her affliction found out, Melina would be forced into battle to save her throne. So I think that Melina has been
conspired against,
infected. And we actually touched upon this, as you mentioned already, in our Tarkatan bite-sized episodes on Tarkat. You have yours and I have my follow-up to yours, and we both believe that it is Shang Tsung in some form who is the one responsible, once again in this timeline, as in the previous timeline, for creating Melina to some extent. She might not be completely lab created, this time as from her entire form. She was born proper birth, apparently. I say proper. She was given birth to by Sindel, in comparison being some lab experiment, but we have seen that Shang Tsung's lab is returning.
Yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned that, because we can actually see in this scene that appears that is where they are at while Kenshi is with Melina. So not sure if Melina was taken here or if possibly this could be where she gets infected. Who knows? Maybe Kenshi is the infector working with Shang Tsung. We have no idea what the story is going, but there are so many different facets, and like you said, these trailers are cut in a way to make you think one way, but then as we've noticed as we've been going through these trailer breakdowns, there's a lot more happening than we see, and there's a lot more misdirection than what's really going on.
Yeah, and I'm also looking behind Kenshi and Melina. If you see those papers on the wall, they look like diagrams of, at least one of them looks like a skull. They're very, very blurry in this scene.
I was thinking one of them might be like molecular structures.
Potentially. I could see that too, for sure.
Yeah.
But that's as far as I can zoom in this trailer specifically.
With Liu Kang's help, maybe they'll find a cure.
If he could have helped, he would have done so by now.
So this scene starts off with who we presume is Kenshi saying that maybe Liu Kang can help Melina find a cure for Tarkat. And it's immediately followed up by Baraka saying if he could help, he would have helped, basically. And this is a direct response to what Kenshi, or whoever this character is that's speaking, is saying. So we know that there is an interaction going on where Baraka is responding to it, saying if Liu Kang could have done something about Tarkat, then he would have already.
Well, I'm gonna refer you to a separate trailer, the Banished trailer. We specifically see Kenshi, Johnny Cage, Reptile, Baraka, and I think Kung Lao, if I remember correctly, all working together in what looks to be the living forest. So Baraka, just based on this, seems to be a good guy by now in this timeline once again, because as we've seen in MK11, he does switch sides and work with Kitana and the forces of light, as I like to continue calling them, because the 3D era. So you're right, it does sound like Kenshi speaking to him, and then he says something very important, which is if Liu Kang could have helped, he would have done so by now. And what does that make you think about Liu Kang?
That Liu Kang is not an all-powerful god. It's something we've kind of talked about too.
He is, but
we've talked about.
He can't control everything.
Yeah, exactly. He can't control everything. He is a god, but he's not able to change our individual decisions, it seems.
Yeah, he specifically says in an intro dialogue, I think, that he can only guide, if I remember correctly, something along those lines. Like, he can't make everybody do what he wants, he can only set everybody on the correct path or whatever, and then take it from there. So I think that Baraka is going to be trying to work with these guys, or they're going to ask Baraka for help because he is, let's just say, the most well-known of the Tarkatans at this stage, potentially. So they've brought him in. And one thing that's interesting as well about this trailer is just when we see Baraka being shown. So we see Baraka getting some form of injection, but it looks like they're extracting, I don't know, spinal fluid from the back of his neck or something.
Yeah,
what do you think?
Yeah, at first we thought it was an injection, but after rewatching this a few times, it seems like the vial is empty when they inject it into his neck. So it either could be a clear substance, or they could be, like you said, withdrawing some kind of spinal fluid. Maybe they are trying to find a cure, or
spread it.
Yeah, or spread it even further. You go.
I'm sorry, I'm holding myself back. I cracked it.
Oh yeah,
The rings.
I know what you're about to say. Yeah, the rings.
That's Shang Tsung.
Yeah,
That's in
you're
his
right.
render.
That is Shang Tsung's rings. Huh. So
Got
Shang,
it.
Shang Tsung is experimenting on the Tarkats. Or the Tarkatans. I don't even know what they're called
With
anymore. But yeah.
Tarkats. No, I still go with Tarkatans. But yeah, the Tarkatans, we see them in this trailer being rounded up and everything being treated like subhumans. We see one of them walking away as if to go and get somebody.
Yeah.
Here.
Yeah,
This.
or
Like, where's he going? That's walking with purpose. You get me?
right. And he's letting everybody else attack the guards while he goes to do something.
Yes. Distraction of sorts.
Right.
We are victims of Tarkat. It disfigures, then debilitates. In time, it will turn us all into bloodthirsty monsters. Death is our only release.
Baraka has one of the coolest lines in all of the Mortal Kombat content we've seen so far, in my opinion. He says, "We are victims of Tarkat. It disfigures, then debilitates. In time, it will turn us all into bloodthirsty monsters. Death is our only release." And that is such a boss line. And it
really
actually
is.
makes me think of MK Annihilation, I think it is, where, what was it? I think it's Cyrax. He's speaking to Sonya and Jax, and he's like, "Death is the only way out."
Yeah, yeah. That's right. When he meets them in the laboratory where Jax is getting his arms put on or whatever. Yeah, he says death is the only way out.
I always remember Jackson when he's just standing up looking at his arms.
So in this next part, we actually see a stage that we haven't really noticed before or seen any signs of before. It's some kind of outworld ruins, like a wasteland, or the Tarkatan base camp.
Yeah, I was thinking it was most likely the Tarkatan camp. It looks very reminiscent of the Tarkatan camp in MK11, actually.
Yeah. And then also in this gameplay, we see Darius for the first time, which is pretty cool to see him come back. What do you want to refresh our fans' memories and my own on who Darius is? Because it's been so long since we've had him.
He's Blade. Okay, so Darius is actually from the Order realm, the realm of Sado, and they actually call him. Well, he says that people call him a terrorist, but he thinks of himself as a hero. He's one of the guys fighting against Order itself. Actually, he is obviously enemies with Hotaru, and in some fashion has sort of allied, kind of, if you think about it, with Havoc, because of Havoc, trying to fight back against, or just fight against the Sado realm.
Yeah.
But what Darius specifically is the leader of the resistance, and one of the ways in which he recruits people to the resistance is that he'll get somebody to kill, let's just say, a warrior's family. Then that will make him fight and potentially kill the assassin. And then he is going to be in prison for the attack, with Darius then releasing them from jail and then recruiting them. And he is basically, his MO is the resistance. He is all about insurrection, which is, again, something we're seeing quite a lot just within this trailer. Potentially, but it just with all the trailers that we've seen, especially General Shao's. So I think that Darius's inclusion is quite a big one. I know he's just a cameo, and I know you and I have had disagreements on whether or not cameos will be important to the story, but just the fact that Havoc was revealed in the same trailer as Reptile and Serena and Ashura makes me wonder whether or not he is related, like relationship-wise, to Darius. I can see Darius actually being important to the story. I think that he's not just there as some random fun nod to the 3D era. I could be wrong, but Havoc's bio specifically makes him sound like a combination, actually, of Dairu and Darius. in that he is actually imprisoned. We talked about this, I think, on our episode with Under the Mail as well. But Havoc is, it sounds like, I wouldn't say imprisoned. He is definitely imprisoned by the Sado realm for well, just breaking the law pretty much, which is, you know, Havoc's MO as well. But this Havoc is very different. He is angry at injustice. You know, he doesn't want to be forced to follow the laws in his own in the way that Sado wants him to. So he actually sets out to destroy Sado's regime and replace it with an anarchist utopia. But the thing that stood out to me the most was Havoc will free its citizens rather than he will go and create the Chaos Realm. So that led me to my theory of Havoc and the Chaos Realm having been enslaved by the Order Realm, the same vein that Outworld used to do so with other realms as well, and potentially has done in this timeline too. We see that Edenia is a part of Outworld. We see that Zatara is a part of Outworld too. So I wonder if Darius and Havoc will be working together, and just Darius's inclusion in this trailer could be further misdirection, rather than putting him in the same trailer as Havoc.
Yeah, that's a good point. You know, if you're right and all these cameos are in the story mode in some way, I think that would be a lot of fun, which actually leads me back to something I forgot to mention a little bit earlier. During Tanya's introduction, we do see another confirmed cameo with her. So we actually see in this scene Chameleon, which hasn't been around since the 3D or the 2D era. Oh, I guess she did make an appearance in the 3D
era on the Wii.
Right. So that's another character who is a cameo, and we know for sure that she is in this cutscene, which is a story mode scene. So you could be onto something. Maybe these characters do have roles within the story too. These cameo characters do.
Well, a lot of people were asking if that was actually Chameleon or not. To me, it was very clear that it was definitely Chameleon, but fair play to them for asking, because she's wearing yellow, and that's not something that Chameleon is known for. She's known for having, let's just go with gray silverish, and then it sort of rotates between colors, because that's the entire point. She's supposed to be a chameleon who takes on the abilities and looks of the female ninja. Let's just go with, for example, you know, she actually had not just Kitana, Melina, and Jade's abilities, but also Tanya's. And so that's why I always found it weird when Tanya was apparently not considered one of the female ninja. But Chameleon is back for the first time technically since Armageddon on the Wii. And it's funny because Chameleon seems to be a very Nintendo-oriented character. She was only available in Trilogy on the 64, and then she was only available in Armageddon on the Wii. And she hasn't been seen now for 17 years. But it's very important that we address the fact that she is back, purely because Reptile is back too. And they are both the only two confirmed Zaterrans.
In the original timeline, you mean?
Yes, but even now, I mean, okay, yeah, technically right now Reptile is the only confirmed Zaterran. But yes, in the original timeline, Chameleon and Reptile. And it's funny because Chameleon with a C, the male Chameleon, was never actually confirmed, only hinted at being a Saurian.
And you know, something else too is the people who weren't sure that this is Chameleon, not only has it been announced that she's going to be released with Combat Pack 1 as a cameo fighter, but also she's wearing her Mortal Kombat, I think it's her Armageddon outfit, just with different color tones and with under leggings and stuff, so that she's not too sexy.
It's interesting as well, because if you go through Reptile's bio, he is Zaterran, one of the reptiloid races which lives on Outworld's fringes. Like other reptiles, Zaterrans can camouflage themselves, but Reptile possesses a unique mutation. This part's important. One which allows him to shift shape, I don't know why they said shift shape and not shapeshift, to appear human. Bullied mercilessly by Zaterrans for this ability, Reptile left home to make his future elsewhere. That is the not full bio. Because they released this image without the full text, as we've already seen. But this part is fine just for this discussion, because it's very important to note that he has a unique mutation allowing him to shapeshift to a human, which is or humanoid, which is actually kind of what we see Chameleon doing. Now, I wonder if her mutation is how their shapeshifting is supposed to be, and Reptile becomes too human, or if they both have humanoid transformations. But if that was the case, then why is Chameleon potentially part of the Umgadi? She is most certainly part of the Umgadi with what she's wearing, the yellow tones.
Yeah,
so
that's what I was thinking too.
Maybe she has also been kicked out, just driven to leave by her own species. And maybe Reptile and her come together and actually finally end up not being alone for the first time.
It could be too that they are different species, or from different reptilian families. And maybe Chameleon's has a more humanoid appearance, but isn't, fully humanoid. And Reptile looks 100% human when he's in that shape. So Chameleon, on the other hand, in this preview, looks like a translucent person.
In MK1?
Yeah, in this.
I'd argue that she doesn't look translucent. Actually, her skin just seems to be very like pastel white. It could be translucent, but I don't see it in this scene.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
It's a very solid white. You get me?
Yeah,
like gray, if anything.
Mm-hmm. With
great
eyes
though,
and stuff.
with her hair.
What's
or is that a hood? I can't tell if it's a hood or if it's her hair.
I'm pretty sure it's her hair.
Interesting. That's the only part that's really different aside from the leggings from her MK Armageddon design.
Oh, was her new bob cut?
No, she had like sort of mid-length flowing hair.
Yeah. It could be a hood, but I'm pretty sure it's her hair.
She does seem to have, I don't know, I'm going to call it a sort of tiara of sorts, I suppose. Like headband, kind of. Yeah, I guess headband's the right word. Again, so that fits. I'm just wondering if she is actually part of the Umgadi, or if she's... I don't know. I feel like Chameleon will feature into the story, and just the fact that she is part of the combat pack as a cameo character confirms what I was saying about Ed Boon mentioning in an interview, that there are going to be cameo characters who are story exclusive.
We speculate that she's part of the Umgadi, but her wardrobe is, even though the same colors, it is a different uniform than the rest of the Umgadi.
Yes.
So maybe she's some kind of Umgadi apprentice, or maybe not Umgadi at all.
Okay, well, good that you brought this up, because this was my next point. I've been saying she's Umgadi this whole time, but what if she's not? What if she is still wearing a great outfit, but because she's a cameo to Tanya, she takes on the same palette, the same color, and uses specific abilities for Tanya. We've seen this now kind of with Shujinko.
Right.
Shujinko uses his, I'm going to call it the Apex punch, because I'm pretty damn sure that that's going to be what they call it. But we've seen that Shujinko was able to steal his opponent's ability, one of their abilities, and use it against them. What if Chameleon, and I had this theory right when we saw this trailer, and I think I was traveling at the time, but I have a feeling that Chameleon is going to be able to use her abilities specific to the playable character that she is cameoing.
That would make a lot of sense, and it would be similar to Shujinko, who he cameos, his cameo movesets are based off the person you're fighting against.
But it's the opposite here.
Yeah, it could be based off of the person that you're fighting with. I like that.
And it's not just the abilities, but it's also the aesthetics.
Right. Yeah. That'd be a cool way to do Chameleon. That makes a lot of sense. I think you could be right on that.
Priestesses, in my heart, I am still Umgadi. I will always honor my vows.
So the last thing we get is Li Mei and Liu Kang being surrounded completely by the Umgadi. And she ends it with this line saying that in her heart, she is still Umgadi and she will continue to follow her vows. Yanni, do you have any final thoughts on this scene? I mean, it seems like related back to the scenes at the beginning of the clip that we started watching.
I actually think this scene appears before.
I think so too.
Meets Tanya.
Before Tanya shows up, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it also potentially answers a question that we had earlier about how she was able to leave the Umgadi. Maybe she was able to leave because she said, I will continue to follow the principles of it, but I will just not be part of the forces anymore. You know?
Yeah, I think you're probably right there.
Could be looking too much into it, to be fair. But it is a very interesting scene that the Umgadi... Like, we haven't actually addressed why Tanya and the Umgadi think that... or are trying to keep Liu Kang and Li Mei away from the royal family. Why are they pushing so hard against? What is the threat right now? What have Liu Kang and Li Mei discovered? I think this could relate to that first scene at the beginning where we see Li Mei jumping out the palanquin and fighting against General Shao's warriors.
Yeah, I think you're right. Something probably happened on their way to the palace, and they come busting in wanting to talk to the queen and the royal family, which is not something you do in a setting no matter what your role is. Even if you're the mayor of the city, you just don't run in and start talking to your queen. So yeah, I think that could be the case, that they come busting in and then the Umgadi pounces on them like, what do you think you're doing?
And I think, like, we do have the scene of Tanya and Darius in Shang Tsung's lab, but I think we can actually address Shang Tsung's lab in greater detail when we get to the Rulers of Outworld trailer, because we get to see it in greater detail in that one. But
yeah, let's talk about
I do want to address one thing just very quickly that you did mention earlier, and you said that Tanya's moveset is even sort of, let's just say, copy pasted. I know you didn't say that, to be fair, but you said it's pretty much what Jade's was.
Right.
And it doesn't have many elements of Tanya, and I actually disagree with that, because her acrobatics in her, I would say her combo strengths and her special abilities that we've seen, she even has a sort of like, I'm going to call it the screwdriver, where she kicks through under them. She does some acrobatics in the air, like I think she has a split kick even in the air and such. That is what I associate Tanya with. The 3-section staff is a very different take. I'm sad actually that she did not continue to get the Naginata or the Tonfa, and I'm confused as to the lack of pyromancy now, but they've given her a very different set of abilities, which I don't know how to even label them, which are very cool looking. But I'm just going to go with JoJo stand in a way. But I don't know. I don't think that she has taken on too much of Jade's combat abilities. I don't think she actually looks similar at all to Jade combat-wise. And the closest that you're going to get with that comparison is the fact that she's using a staff now, and even then it's a 3-section staff rather than a bow staff like Jade.
There have been there's a lot of people who are upset with the fact that the Tonfas are gone and things like that, but this new weapon set for Tanya, I think it's a very cool weapon set. I think it's a very unique take on a 3-section staff, and it fits in very well with this trailer, with how Li Mei's powers are with her lanterns and her dragons and stuff like that. It's like almost like a Green Lantern light type of thing, and putting Li Mei in that same trailer and showcasing a very similar power kind of shows possibilities of what the Umgadi could do as individuals. Maybe they have very similar power sets, and that's how it manifests itself.
Potentially. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love the 3-section staff, and I think it's a really cool weapon, which does fit Tanya quite well. But I would have preferred to have seen the Tonfa or the Naginata make a return, and maybe somebody else get the 3-section staff. If anything, even Li Mei could have gotten the 3-section staff in addition to her lantern.
Or Jade.
Hey. But I mean, even Rain has had his weapon changed. Like, everybody seems to have their weapons changed a lot. Rain had daggers.
Even Kuai Liang has had his weapon changed.
Kuai Liang has had everything changed. But I guess the point here is that even when we think that a character has like an iconic weapon, NRS aren't afraid to switch that character up, especially now with the whole rebooted timeline. And I think that the 3-section staff is still a very good choice for Jade, regardless. Sorry, wow, I just did it for Tanya.
For Jade 2.0.
I say staff and I think Jade.
You know, I would like to hear what our viewers think. Do you like this new look of Tanya? Do you think that the 3-section staff would have been a better fit for Jade or somebody else? Or do you think that this is a good natural progression of Tanya, or an evolution of the character that we once knew? Let us know in the comments, because we're really curious to see what you guys think about this trailer. It's, I think, probably one of the most controversial trailers that we've had with Mortal Kombat 1, in my opinion at least.
And I think when you're dropping your thoughts on Tanya's face model, I think be fair, because firstly, her face model, from what I've seen, is actually gorgeous.
Yeah.
It's just the style that they've sort of manipulated Tanya's face to look like for the game itself is different. But on top of that, I think be fair, because I'm seeing a lot of people going around using very specific frames to try and say, hey, look how bad this looks, when in reality, you know, not everybody's going to have the greatest look on every single frame. I bet if you stop this right now while I'm talking, I'm going to be like, you know, and that totally happens. But at the same time, personally, as I mentioned already, I miss the old ancient Egyptian sort of theme on Tanya. I really thought that was her thing, if you know what I mean. But let us know, as Phantom said, share your thoughts in the comments, connect with us on social media, let us know. We are on @Realm Kast on all forms of social media, and including now on Facebook and Instagram, we are @Realm Kast. We have gone all in on Realm Kast. So interact with us there, or on Mortal Kombat Online's Discord channel. We have a link to the server in the description of this video. Your engagement, passion, and diverse viewpoints invigorate the community and our discussions. So please let us know your thoughts.
And lastly, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your support is what propels our exploration into the fascinating world of Mortal Kombat. So until our next journey into the realms, stay curious, keep the gaming spirit high, and remember, every warrior has a story and every saga a lesson.